Oh, God, here we go. Oh, push me over the ledge. Wow. Here we go. Walking backwards. Miss Matsuoka. Oh, God. Camera's shaking. I'm not going to fall overboard. I know you want me to. Woo!
Okay, good morning, Timothy, and good morning to everybody who was listening to Timothy. What's that? Enhancing the sound of our introductory video. Sorry. Okay. Anyway, good morning to everybody. Thank you very much for joining us in Clubhouse, LinkedIn, YouTube, probably Facebook as well. It is Sunday morning, May the 5th. I think it is the Children's Day today, if I'm not mistaken, here in Japan. And well, I hope that everybody who have kids is in a position to celebrate that and have a great day. Also, we're here this morning again with Timothy Langley, the CEO of Langley Esquire, government relations consultancy firm in downtown Tokyo, and with me, Maya Matsuoka of Japan Expert Insights. And this is the 169th episode of Japanese Politics One-on-One. Timothy promised us that he would make up a good story this morning, so please, stay with us and listen until the end so that we can give him some applause when he's done with the briefing. Timothy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Maya. Gosh, what a long intro.
Right.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Maya. Today is May 5th, as Maya said. This is the 169th. My gosh, thank you, everybody, for listening in and for encouraging us to continue this 169. You know, even on the times that we're off or we're on Children's Day or vacationing, we're still here to give you the report on what's going on in Japanese news and Japanese politics that's important to you. And we hope this is also one of those kinds of episodes. Today is still Golden Week. As Maya said, it's Children's Day today. It's observed tomorrow, so that's why everybody has another day off, and work starts on Tuesday. It is the end of Golden Week tomorrow, maybe a week, depending on how you have managed to get your days off aligned. But it was a business day on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, so there was some action going on, and also some movements on the yen on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Of course, the yen still moves in New York, even though the markets might be closed in Tokyo. But there was some volatility experienced this week, and I'd like to get into that a little bit. Also, since it's been Golden Week, the major politicians have been out and about. The Prime Minister has been on a three-country tour. He is today in Paraguay, and he'll be returning tonight to Tokyo. The foreign minister is, where is she? She's in Paris, she's in South Africa. She was all over the place, and I think today she is, where is she? Maybe, she was in Paris. I think she's on her way back today. You've got the defense minister who is in Hawaii having a trilateral, quadrilateral meeting, convention with other defense ministers, and the rhetoric is just really ramping up. The assertiveness that is expressed by the combination of these countries coming together is pretty remarkable, given the very slow pace and the quiet attitude of Japan, particularly with regard to what's going on in the South Pacific. So there's plenty to be coming out of that. The meetings are all held Thursday and Friday. People will be returning back to Tokyo over the weekend, or maybe just enjoying a little bit of a break. But let me see what's going on today. By the way, I'm reporting from Habu Harbor. Habu Harbor is a collapsed caldera in the middle of, or at the southern end of Oshima Island. Oshima Island is the first of 7 islands that stretch out into the Pacific. The last time we talked, it was last Sunday. I was just boarding this sailing yacht, Garuda, a 31-foot sailing vessel, and we sailed to the farthest island, which is Mikurajima, and kind of island hopped from there. We've visited 5 islands. This is the 5th island in the 7-island chain. We're on our way back, and we'll be departing here today to go back to our home port in Hota, which is on the peninsula of Chiba that faces Tokyo Bay. But that's just a little bit of background, because the harbor here, it's almost completely circular, representing the mouth of a volcano, and it collapsed into the sea, and a channel was etched in, so boats can come in for a safe harbor. It's a beautiful place to tie your boat up. But in any event, the diet session ends on June 23rd. That will be the last day of the session. I don't think there'll be an extended session. There's too much work to be done between now and then. The election for Tokyo governor is on July 7th, not very far away since the diet ends, and there's a little bit of a play there. This Thursday, Maya, Dan Harada and I will be talking about what's happened with the by-elections this last Sunday, what it means. We'll be talking about that today, but I think given a couple of days to people come back to work and to see what the posture and what the voices are saying towards the prime minister and what the prime minister does, it might give us a little bit more of an intuition about what is going to happen. So Dan and I are going to talk about that on noon on Thursday, this coming up Thursday. So please tune into that. The election results, as you all know, the LDP lost all three of the by-election seats, lower house seats that were up for election. One was open due to the death of the holder of that, the lower house member, and two of them were vacated because of various forms of political scandal, almost all dealing with money and political funds and buying votes and that sort of thing. So, except for Shimane, where the holder, the member of that diet seat died in office, the other two, also held by LDP members, were vacated because of, bad politics, and the kind of vitriol against the LDP was so bad that the LDP decided not even to run candidates in those two elections. In the third one in Shimane, this is the election district of the former Speaker of the House. He died while Speaker of the House, very popular, very powerful, Mr. Hosoda. But even there, the LDP did surprisingly poorly. In fact, he got the LDP candidate got beaten so badly that pundits call it a rout. The Constitutional Democratic Party whipped the LDP and pretty much put them in their place. Part of the reason for that is because the Shimane is the second lowest population prefecture in Japan. So the holder of that, the LDP holder of that, has held it ever since that election seat was created. So the LDP has been strong there. It's also the seat of Mr. Hosoda, who was the leader of the Abe faction. And the Abe faction, as you know, was kind of up to here with the Unification Church. And when that scandal broke out, it created a lot of different subsidiary issues. And it turns out that Mr. Hosoda was really very much involved as the leader of the faction. He was really involved with the Unification Church. It hasn't come out very publicly, but the people in Shimane were kind of sick of how much influence the Unification Church was wielding in that political district. So that's another thing that was going against the LDP. For some people, for somebody like Mr. Hosoda, that's a great strength. You have power in numbers, and you have a contributor who is giving you a lot of influence, not only in your election district, but throughout Japan in this tit-for-tat trade, which makes it essentially illegal in most countries. So when they did the investigation about who was involved with the Unification Church, you might remember, all the members were forced to write to the Secretary General of the LDP describing what their relationship was with the Unification Church, how deep that was, how long it went, and then to sign a statement at the bottom that they have cut all ties. That order that went out from the Secretary General and the report of involvement that went to the press and people, the LDP was trying to cleanse themselves from it, applied to everybody except for the Speaker of the House. So the Speaker of the House was removed from that, above reproach, but it turns out that he was probably one of the culprits of designing that incursion of the Unification Church. That issue, by the way, is not dead. It is still going on. It's still in court. They're trying to figure out how they're going to distribute the amount of money and properties and buildings and assets that were tied to the Unification Church by the accolades by the members. In any event, the three districts you already know, it was Nagasaki number 3, Tokyo 15, and Shimane 1. Shimane 1 we've just discussed. The LDP got trounced by the Constitutional Democratic Party. Miss Kame, whose dad was an influential member of the LDP in years past, started his own party. She ran 3 times in this election district. She had won once, she lost twice, and the vote disparity between the last 2 elections that she ran and lost in and the number of votes that she got this time is so astounding that it's sent shockwaves to the LDP. They are considering that the number of votes that she received is somewhat representative of what might happen potentially throughout the country if there was a snap election. So although we've been talking about the feasibility and the good idea of having a snap election for many sessions here, it does not look like that's a viable opportunity for the Prime Minister. In fact, after the election results were tallied on Sunday night, Monday morning, Mr. Kishida's advisor, Mr. Kihara, went on television to say, look, this is really bad. If we have an election now, a general election, a snap election called by the Prime Minister, or, for example, a dissolution caused by a no confidence vote, the LDP is potentially going to lose its majority. And one of the reasons why it has a majority, because it has a coalition with Komeito. And Komeito is really pushing the LDP to reform themselves because of this kickback scandal. And they've given a list of demands. If you're following us on the synopsis that goes out, the list of demands included, you need to tighten it up. The amount of money that is being devoted to you when you give these briefing parties and these benkyokai, below Nimayan or below, you don't have to report who the people are who are joining your study sessions. But from now on, we want all of the names to be revealed. So apparently, there are a lot of ghost visitors to these study sessions, and as long as they pay less than 220,000 yen, which is about $200, then they don't have to report who it is. So companies can buy tickets for all of their employees, and they don't have to report that. And that's one of the ways that they've been collecting funds. But the ratchet is really coming down hard. And the Komeito is saying to the LDP, we are bound to you. We are part of the coalition, but you are looking so bad, it's beginning to pull us down. And it could be that we just don't want to have any part of you. So should the dynamics come up where there was an election, the LDP is doing bad, Komeito just might say, we're going to go it alone. You take your votes as you take them, and we're not going to be a part of your mess anymore. So one of the reasons that the Prime Minister is really under the gun is because he must reform the LDP. Reforming the LDP means he's going to lose power and influence. The way that you gain power and influence is essentially helping people win their elections, get more voters to them, give them some sort of position of power within the hierarchy so that they can do favors for people. They can guarantee their longevity as a member of the parliament. That's the game here. So it's a tough battle for the LDP. In all 3 of the races, the Constitutional Democratic Party candidate won. So this is not such great news for Ishin either. Ishin is up and coming. They're very strong in the Osaka and Kansai region, and they're trying to make inroads throughout the rest of Japan. And this election pretty much told them you're not ready yet. You don't have the right candidates. You don't have the right platform. The Constitutional Democratic Party has been in existence longer, and they are the #1 opposition party and getting stronger. Their leader is Kenta Izumi, and he went on television on Monday and said, as a result of this by-election, and particularly in Shimane, the Constitutional Democratic Party insists that there is a call for a no confidence motion when the Diet comes back into session after Golden Week, because everybody understands that this administration and this prime minister is not taking the country in the right direction. So there could be some real action going on once we get back to work on Tuesday. So that's why Dan and I are going to be evaluating and talking about it on Thursday. So what does this mean for the LDP, and what does it mean for the prime minister? For the LDP, the prospect of losing their majority is frightening, because they have been the political party in power since in the post-war period, except for a very brief 2-year period where the opposition party took command. There was the massive earthquake and the triple disaster, and things fell apart there. They lost power in the next election, and the LDP has been trying to strengthen itself ever since then. And part of that was this kickback scandal, getting the political powers closer and tighter together, particularly with regard to the Abe faction. So as it stands right now, the Abe faction has been disbanded. The other factions have been disbanded or are in the process of being disbanded. And the only faction that is really holding firm is the Aso faction. So it presents an opportunity for Mr. Aso, as the deputy prime minister of the LDP, to help the LDP guide themselves if there is a call for a no confidence, or maybe even an opportunity for Mr. Aso to be the kingmaker and to choose who would be the successor to Mr. Kishida. And as you know, if you've been watching this briefing frequently, the relationship between Mr. Aso and Mr. Kishida is not altogether very good. Mr. Aso believes Mr. Kishida should be conferring more with Mr. Aso and involving him in some of the decisions, and relying on him more for this balance of power between the Secretary General, Mr. Motegi, Mr. Aso, and the Prime Minister. The unfortunate thing is that with Mr. Motegi and Mr. Kishida, that relationship is really on the rocks. They probably don't even speak one-on-one to each other without the presence of Mr. Aso to help smooth things along. And with the defeat of these 3 elections, it is possible to point the finger at Mr. Motegi and say, you're the Secretary General, you're in charge of distributing money and funds and selecting the candidates and making sure the LDP is stable, and you lost all 3 of these. You didn't even put 2 candidates in 2 of the seats, in 2 of the races. And the only race that we had, which was the most important one, where you were devoting all of your energy, you lost, and you lost astoundingly. So somebody's got to take blame for that. And the most likely individual is Mr. Motegi. Ultimately, it's the Prime Minister, but Mr. Motegi is the Secretary General. And so for the Prime Minister, as president of the LDP, his term of office for presidency comes up in September. He wants to succeed himself, and in order to do that, he's got to diminish the detractors or the people who might come after him. You have to have 20 Diet members sign your petition to run as a candidate, and to intimidate or to befriend so many people that they're unwilling to sign a document that endorses another candidate, for example, Mr. Motegi, excuse me. So the option for Mr. Kishida is to either fire Mr. Motegi, which releases him from running the LDP machinery, but it also allows him to take the blame for the defeat. But on the other hand, it allows him to also speak against the Prime Minister. Right now, he's in the administration, and he can't say negative things about the Prime Minister publicly, and he can't be a candidate for Prime Minister while he's in the administration. When he's out, then he becomes, obviously, the #1 contender for that position. So the Prime Minister is weighing that very carefully. Should I let him loose, or should I keep him close? For Mr. Motegi, he wants to continue to be Secretary General at the longest possible time, because that's a position of power and influence. You can do favors for people, and you can collect people to your own cadre of voters. He can get 20 people to sign his candidacy to become president of the LDP. But it is it's a long shot, particularly with this defeat going on. But in any event, the prime minister is unlikely to close down the House, but that option is still open to him. It is likely that he might change the Secretary General, and if he's going to do that, he might as well clean house with other members of his cabinet and just have a cabinet reshuffle. There's precious little time there. There are other things on the agenda that he needs to focus on. You might remember constitutional revision, which is revising the Constitution. It's never been revised in the 79 years of its existence since the end of the Pacific War, and revise certain parts of that, particularly Article 9 of the Constitution, which prohibits Japan from producing offensive weapons and having an offensive stance, even though if you've been watching again, you know how much of an offensive stance the Japanese have been taking recently, and they've got bilateral agreements like SOFA agreements with the United States. They've replicated different military alliances with other countries. Mr. Kishida was in France just 2 days ago, and he signed an agreement with France to be kind of quasi-allies and have reciprocal agreements so that soldiers from France can come to Japan and have bilateral exercises, and soldiers from the self-defense forces can go to France, and they can participate throughout not just France, but all throughout the Asia-Pacific region on French vessels, with aircraft, that sort of thing. So it's not quite a SOFA agreement, but it's almost becoming an ally. And we've already got agreements with Britain and with Australia. So this is, once again, this march forward towards having a very strong, very integrated defensive lattice work towards any possible incursions by the Chinese towards Taiwan. I think that's what this is all built up to be. So for Mr. Kishida, he wants to continue being prime minister. He is the 6th longest serving prime minister in post-war history. He wants to be the 7th he's the 7th longest now. He wants to be the 6th longest. The 6th longest serving prime minister is Nobukishi, who was the father of the LDP. But he's got another 309 days to serve before he can break that record. And he desperately wants to do that. So there's a lot of calculus going on. There's a lot of machinations. Nothing stays the same. And we expect there to be a lot of action over the next coming weeks. So continue to stick with us on that. Let's see. It's been a busy travel schedule for not just the prime minister who's been in Paris, Brazil. Today he's in Paraguay, but also for the foreign minister, Kamikawa. She has been in Africa, 3 nations in Africa, and in Paris. And the prime minister, once again, visiting Brazil. He had a state visit with President Lula da Silva, who is going to be the president of the G20. Currently, Japan has the chair position of the G20, and that's being passed over to Brazil. And so there was a lot for them to talk about there. But they also signed some bilateral agreements on bioethanol and biomass. You probably don't know this, but all of the ethanol that Japan imports comes from Brazil. So there is a tight relationship there. And in Paraguay, I don't have much to report on Paraguay. I think that was yesterday, and maybe a day and a half in Paraguay. I don't have much to report on that, but I'll take a stab at it next week when we get together. The revision for the Constitution I was talking about earlier, when the Prime Minister took office, he said, this is one of those issues I'm going to handle. I'm going to take care of revising the Constitution, and it is unlikely he's going to be able to do that. There are less than 2 months left in this Diet session, and in order to get that kind of momentum going forward, I just don't think he has the amount of time, and probably he lacks the enthusiasm for it. The most important thing for him now is to strengthen his forces so that he can run for election and win the election for the next LDP presidency. I don't know if that's going to happen. I think the population is kind of sick of the the scandal-ridden LDP of recent memory and the defeat in the 3 by-elections. It's just not looking good. The vectors aren't looking good. And all it takes is somebody who has a strength of purpose. Mr. Izumi with the Constitutional Democratic Party definitely does. But also there are contenders within the LDP, like Mr. Shigeru Ishiba, who has once again put his hand up and said, I'm still here. I haven't been tainted by the scandal. I was kind of maltreated by the LDP too. But I'm a good contender for prime minister. I was candidate before. I can be candidate again. So he's raising his voice. Potentially, Mr. Motegi might throw his hat into the ring, but it's quite a while between now and September. The Diet session will end on June 23rd. We've got the election for the governor, and then we move into August, and that's basically a dead time. It's kind of a dead time after the June 23rd for the Diet. It's not in session, so people are out campaigning. They're visiting their districts, but there is an expectation that there's going to be some great movement there in anticipation of this president's race for the LDP. So we're going to keep on top of that. So it looks like the prime minister is not going to, in spite of his pledge, to attack the revision of the Constitution. And as you know, revising the Constitution requires 2/3 of both houses to agree on the language that is being submitted. And then that language is submitted to the general population. They have a referendum vote. For all the people who vote, if more than 50% vote for that language, then it comes back to the Diet and that the Constitution is revised. It's a very difficult thing to do, particularly in light of the fact that although the LDP has a majority in coalition with Komeito, that coalition is very shaky now. And if there was a general election, people say that the LDP would lose their majority status in the Diet. So having a referendum under those circumstances is just a false start. And finally, the yen has been vacillating wildly. I don't know if you've been watching it. You might be sitting on a beach drinking a pina colada, but the yen vacillated greatly. It went to $160 to the yen on Monday, and it experienced a very deep strengthening. On Wednesday, somebody purchased 3.66 trillion yen worth of US dollars. That comes out to almost $24 billion was exchanged on the market on Wednesday. So the yen, the Japanese government doesn't admit it made this intervention, but it was a massive intervention, and it happened at a very precise time. The yen strengthened from about 150, where was it? It was 159, and it dropped down to 156, and it lasted there for about a couple of nanoseconds, and then it went back up to the 155, 156 region where it is today. So for the amount of investment that somebody, we know who that is, made into the market, the yen strengthened by about 3 yen. It lasted a very brief period of time, and by the close of the day, it went back up, but not quite as far as it was. It was up at 157, it went down to 153, and now it is at 156, give or take. So in that brief period of time, the yen moved 3%, which is huge. It's never done that over the last 2 or 3 years. The last time the Japanese government intervened, it had a similar effect. But the bounce back, just like Janet Yellen told the finance minister, this kind of intervention is not going to be long lasting. If you do it by yourself, you need to do it in concert with other people, and nobody's ready for you to do that. And they came back from Washington from that visit. I think they were sitting on their hands and wondering what to do. The yen was operating very poorly. It was getting weaker, and then somebody just jumped in. We won't know the true story until the formal report is submitted at the end of this month, and we'll report on that. But I think everybody knows what's going on there. That's about it politically going on in this golden week, Maya. There is more expected next week, and once again, Dan Harada and I will be talking about that on Thursday at noon. So hope to see more people out there and giving us their ears on what's going on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Timothy. It's well, the story was really good. Nobody would have guessed that you made it up on the way. Great. So we have a couple of actually a couple of comments on LinkedIn and also maybe on Facebook. I can see this, and I want to start actually the question and answer session with a question to you. Well, the opposition won all the seats in the by-elections on April the 28th. And we know that, well, in two of the districts, basically, the LDP did not have candidates, which maybe made it so much easier um, for the opposition to win there. However, do you think that this will give fuel to to the opposition leaders as they go forward, and maybe give them also power to have I don't know, maybe a vote of
Yeah,
yeah,
a vote of no confidence, right?
no confidence, yes, as we go or as we get closer to September, because September is an important month for the LDP, as we know. So what are your thoughts on this?
I hope I don't get too deep into the weeds, but there are several layers here. And what you said is somewhat is pretty accurate, but it's not the whole thing. You said the LDP lost to the opposition. And to be more accurate, the LDP lost to the Constitutional Democratic Party, which is the leading opposition party. It's the leading
Right.
party of the
Hmm.
5 others that aren't in power. Okay? So it's significant that that one opposition party won all 3. If, for example, Ishin had won in Nagasaki, it
Hmm.
would have the texture would have been completely different. So now you've got one fight where the LDP is fighting against the opposition. That's everybody. That's the socialists. That's the Democrats. That's the communists. That's the whole, Ishin. Everybody. But you've got another fight that's going on that is between the Constitutional Democratic Party and Ishin, and Ishin just got a foot in the mouth in this last election. The Constitutional Democratic Party beat them soundly. And so now Mr. Izumi, the leader of the Constitutional Democratic Party, is feeling his oats. He's feeling very emboldened. And he said the next day after the election results came in, I'm going to call for a no confidence motion. And the power that you're talking about allows him to be like the spokesperson. Everybody hates the LDP. So come on, guys. Even though you're the communists, even though you're the socialists, we don't agree on everything. Let's get those guys out. And let's together kind of form some sort of a coalition among ourselves and make Japan actually a two-party state. It's not a two-party state. It's a one-party state. Let's get that. So that does have a certain amount of appeal and power to it. And I think that is going to be the direction that he's going to take. And I think, yes, so the Constitutional Democratic Party ran against Ishin, but other people who have political leanings voted for the Constitutional Democratic Party, even though they're not members. Some of them also voted for Ishin because there's a horse trading going on here. I'm going to
Right.
help you defeat the LDP in this election district, but when it comes to a general election, please allow me to have those seats uncontested by you. And that's how that works. So yeah, I think that the political dynamics are really changing very quickly. But it's a great question, and that layer of who's competing with who at any particular time is very very important.
Yes, it is important, but at the same time, I also well, there are some media newslets outlets, sorry, outlets that are talking about a replacement of Mr. Izumi, the Liberal Democratic Party's leader. So, what is that? Because obviously the party won the elections,
Okay,
right?
yeah,
Right.
that discussion was taking on a lot of heat before the election, and
Mm-hmm.
now that they won all 3, he looks like the hero. So those discussions have kind of dissipated, and that's why he's feeling so good. He feels
I
like now
see.
I've got a little bit of momentum going. Some of my opposition parties, some of the parties that aren't part of the Constitutional Democratic Party, they voted for our candidate because of negotiations I had with them. I personally had with them. And so
Mm-hmm.
now we've got something of a coalition. It's not great, but I help them, they're going to help me, and then I'm going to help them again. So let's go ahead and, I mean, the main objective here is kick the LDP out of the goddamn house.
Right, but at the same time, I don't see that, or those thoughts running through the heads of the Ishin leadership. So, because Ishin seems, and they said before the by-election that they were going to kick whatever, anyway, to kick out the Constitutional Democratic Party because they wanted to become actually the strongest opposition party in Japan, and it meant beating
Yes.
the CDP.
Okay, so the Ishin is in a very different situation. Ishin, they're thinking, do we form a coalition with the Constitutional Democratic Party and join forces and then beat them? Or do we have enough gumption? Do we have enough candidates, should there be a general election, where we can flood the ballots with our candidates and come up and surpass the Constitutional Democratic Party? It's going to take maybe 2 or 3 elections. Mr. Baba said this. It's going to take a couple of elections, but we're building that momentum. And if he goes into a coalition, then it retards that momentum. So it's a tough decision for him too. Do we join forces with them and then retard our opportunity to become the number one opposition party, or do we still go it alone? We take a couple of bruises and a couple of knocks on the chin, but we move forward. People watch what we do. They listen to our policy platforms. They like our candidates, and eventually we overcome it. I think that's actually a good strategy, and they may come about it. The Constitutional Democratic Party and Ishin are separate in enough areas, and the Ishin is different in enough conservative areas that I think they are a viable contender to the LDP. Whereas the Constitutional Democratic Party is more of an opposition party. They're a naysayer. They're really
Mm,
good at pointing fingers and pulling them down and saying, you're not doing it the right way. But as it stands right now, with constitutional revision as well, and as the reform of the election law indicates to us, as long as the LDP and Komeito say, this is what we're going to do, okay? I do this and then you do this, okay? And I'll scratch your back later, okay? But please help me on this one. They've got the majority. When it comes up to a vote, they win. So if they have a watered down version of how the LDP is going to reform itself, the LDP wins. The Komeito kind of is diminished a little bit, but somehow there's a payout for that. You've helped us here, we're going to help you there. With the opposition party, the calculus is quite a bit different, and it's a battle that's going on pretty fiercely.
indeed, and still, if you don't mind me just expanding a little bit on Ishin, to me, it really looks like they're still a very local party, even though they try to project the image of
Yeah,
being more national, and being stronger on a national level. I think that they haven't been able to break that, that mindset of
yeah,
just something, well, a party that is strong in just one of the regions of Japan here.
that's true. And part of that reason is
Hmm.
because all the good candidates are sucked up by the LDP. They're
Okay.
already working in the government. They've been assigned a ministerial portfolio. They've been ambassador someplace, or they work in internal affairs, or they've been governor or mayor. So they get that support from the LDP. The opposition parties don't have that. So sometimes they pick up people who were kicked out of the LDP or who left the LDP. There's sometimes a little bit of a taint there. Not always, but even with LDP politicians, there's a taint. I mean, it's politics. These people are human too. But you're absolutely right. The Ishin has this flavor of being a little bit local, and that's why Mr. Baba said it's going to be a hop, a skip, and then a jump. So the hop is form your coalition, get strong in a base in Osaka and in the Kansai region, skip over and have other candidates in highly populated areas where you can get a good candidate, and then leap into national prominence. So that's their strategy, and getting the candidates to run. I mean, even for the LDP, in the 2 election districts that they didn't run, it's because, I mean, you would think, if the
Mm,
LDP supports me, I'll be a candidate. Sure, nobody
yeah.
wants to be a loser. because in this country, if you're a loser, you're kind of always a loser. Nobody likes that, so they don't want to gamble their reputation and their career by running an election they know they're going to get beat.
That reminds me of of two things actually. The first one is how the Giants, the baseball team here in Tokyo, maybe a decade ago, they used to buy, all the best players from other teams.
Right.
They would give them a lot of money. They would choose the best players and then build their team so that it was unbeatable. That's the first thing. Maybe that's the LDP's policy, but there is another thing as well, which is very, I think, something that we don't really realize here in Japan is that basically strategic players in politics and in business as well, they keep their enemies close, right? Very close, actually. They keep them at an arm's length
Right.
or even closer than that. And maybe that's what the LDP does as well. So with those guys who might potentially join Ishin. So who knows? Okay, so sorry for this. And then we've got, yes, a comment that came from Hiroko-san on LinkedIn. And so she writes, "Good morning, everyone. Constitutional Democratic Party won in Shimane, but I heard on TV, a TV interview, that after the election, many LDP members or supporters said they didn't vote for LDP this time just to teach them some lesson." I
Uh-huh.
think that you alluded to this, actually. So, yes, thank you very much for this,
So,
Hiroko-san.
so
Yeah.
Hiroko's onto something here. There are two ways that you can do that protest vote. One way is that you vote for the opposite candidate, and the other way is you don't put a name on it. You register the vote, you submit the vote, but you don't. It's not countable. In this particular election, more than 50% of the LDP members who voted for the winning candidate in the last two elections, the LDP members, more than almost half of them voted for Miss Kame for the Constitutional Democratic Party, and that allowed her to win. So that means that the LDP members switched their vote. They didn't vote, and maybe it's to teach somebody a lesson, but I think it represents more of an upswelling of, I don't like what you're doing, and I want you to change. And if you're not going to change, then I'm going to vote you out of office. It's like wagging a big stick at Mr. Kishida and at the LDP. You're absolutely right.
Right. Okay, thank you for that. And we have a question in Clubhouse, which is about a topic that has been quite hot recently, maybe for the past 2 or 3 days. And the question is there still any doubt why a Biden presidency would not be better than a Trump presidency after Biden xenophobic comment about Japan?
Okay. So the question was: is there any doubt now that the Trump would be a better president than?
For Japan.
Okay. So you can go back and forth on this. It's a campaign speech. It is Joe Biden. He doesn't know what he's talking about most of the time, and it's a hot issue. Japan wants to be loved by the United States, and it not always is. And also, the president is known to be not very clear or very articulate. I would take this comment and just throw it away. Part of what he says is somewhat true. So that's part of the underlying subject there, that but it's like the United States calling the kettle black. The United States has that too. What's going on with U.S. Steel? Why didn't he authorize U.S. Steel to be sold to the Japanese? There's some discrimination going on there too. So I think part of it is he's trying to bolster his stance on immigration in the United States and the open borders. And so I think he's trying to say, immigration's really good. And for those countries that don't practice immigration, look at them. Look at the Japanese. Ha ha, their yen is really in the toilet. And the Chinese too. So, they should do more of what we do. It's more ethical. I think that was more of the story, but he just screws everything up anyway. So getting back to the real subject, who would be better for Japan? Um, a presidency led by Joe Biden or a presidency led by Donald Trump? In the first place, a switch of governments is going to be very tumultuous. It's going to cause a lot of side and unintended consequences. But I think overall, you know, I just get the stronger sense that Mr. Trump knows what in the hell he's doing and what he's talking about. He got his butt kicked in his first term of office in trying to find people to fill the roles in the seats that were available for heads of state, not heads of state, but heads of the various ministries. And he didn't hire the right people. I think the first time around he got burned. There was a lot of churn there. I think this next time around he will surprise people and be really a sterling president, and he's got a very clear purpose here. And I think, Trump presidency would be good for the United States, and I think it would be good for Japan and international relations overall. That being said, this kind of fractious political world that we're in, that either you're with Biden or you're with Trump and you hate the other party, and people are even afraid to talk about it. They're afraid to say, actually giving an analysis and my weighty thought on it, I think this is what I would do. Now you get an onslaught, and we'll probably get a lot of hate mail as a consequence of that. But it's just the culture of the times, the cancel culture. If you don't vote the way I vote and you don't think the way I think, then that means you're a bad person. So I hope that's somewhat responsive. But whoever gave the question, it's a good question. Thanks for teasing me.
No, thank you. I think that it is still a very divisive topic, and then it's difficult to say one way or the other. And yes, it's still, just probably the best answer is we need to wait and see, right? And then yes, because we've also have another comment in Clubhouse about, well, as a response to that one, which is pest or cholera for both the US and Japan. So we'll see. I don't know, but right, we'll because basically it's. I'm sorry to say this, but it's a sad state of affairs that the United States has come to, to the current situation. All
well,
right.
Since we live in a foreign country, we get this all the time from our hosts. Is this the best you guys can produce? You're in a democracy, the largest economic powerhouse in the world, and you only have two candidates, and everybody's, what is wrong with you guys? And then you wag your finger at us and tell us, our currency isn't strong or our military is screwed up. But look at you guys, So we get that a lot too.
Yeah. And well, basically, what I was referring to was, that the division of the population, and how really expressed, how it is expressed in media, mainstream media, also social media, and so on. It's it's really a tight. No, it's what's a hard place to be. Anyway,
Yes.
all right. Okay, so and then let me see. There is another thing. Basically, oh no, I'm going through. I mean, between different platforms and cannot just keep pace at the moment. But okay, now we are going to. Okay, go on. Let me
Maya,
see.
watching you work,
Timothy, are
I
you
know you
still
have a
there?
couple of. I'm
I
still here.
lost
Can
you.
you hear me? Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes, I can hear you. Apologies for that.
I see you working, and I see your eyes going from computer screen to computer screen. The job that you do on this program, I'm so thankful and grateful for you. But every time I watch you, it looks like you have to visit the chiropractor after every episode that we have, because you're doing so many things and observing comments that are flowing in, and some of them you can't even understand. I know some of the people who submit their paragraphs and paragraphs of comments, and you have to synthesize them on the fly. So thank you very much for what you're doing.
No, thank you, actually. And well, I can take a joke or two, but you can do it as well. So, okay, thank you, Timothy. And then there is another comment here on Facebook. It comes from Hiroaki.
Yes.
And so he writes, what is it going to take to restore the ratings of PM Kishida starting tomorrow? Your thoughts on this?
Um, I think
That's a tough.
it is a tough one, but it's a good question. What, if you're the prime minister, what can I do today that's going to help turn this thing around? And it's kind of, if you make a wrong step, it's like you tumble into the abyss. So I think that's when you watch him, he's very careful about what he does and what he says, and he's kind of doing it on the fly. He doesn't have Mr. Asa to rely on as much as he used to, or Mr. Motegi. He's got that kind of internal battle going there, and he's making his own decisions based on his own intuition. I think probably, yeah, maybe one of the first things he's got to do is revise with a high degree of determination the reform law of the Election Funds Act, and do that within this Diet session. The second thing that he should do in concert with that is probably reshuffle his cabinet and express some, what would be the right word? Express some responsibility for the actions of the by-election and what he's going to do to improve things over the next couple of months before the election of prime minister. And if it doesn't work out, if I'm not successful, then I won't run for president. Something like that. And I think that would gain him some credibility. But every step forward always generates other consequences too that you might not have anticipated. People might review that as a sign of weakness and now go for the jugular. So knowing the prime minister as well as we know him and studying what his movements are, probably he's just going to be going it slow and not take any dramatic steps forward. But you never know. But it's a great question, Hiroaki.
Right.
Are you doing your hair, Maya? There you go.
Okay. Trying to. It doesn't comply very easily. So, okay. So, thank you for that, Timothy. Yes, and we've got a couple of greetings as well for you. One of them is from Christian Schmidt on LinkedIn, saying it's nice to
Hi,
see you
Christian.
again. So, Christian, thank you for. Yes, it's been a while since we last communicated with you, so it's very nice to hear from you.
By the way,
And
Maya,
well, from Richard Walton, yes.
the waves, the tide is coming in. Can you hear the waves beating it up against the boat and against
Yes.
the quay here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's
I can
beginning to
hear
wake
them,
up.
and yes, I can see you also holding tight to the rope. That is so. Uh, well, I can imagine how difficult it is to actually keep your balance there. But thank you very much for trying that hard and for doing that. Okay. Yes. Well, and also, Timothy, it seems that today we're going to finish earlier because I believe many people are celebrating the Children's Day. Happy Children's Day once again to everybody who has or doesn't have children. Well, it's a beautiful day here in Tokyo. It seems to be a beautiful day in Oshima, where Timothy is, and I hope that you can enjoy the holiday as well. So I lost Timothy once again.
No, I'm here.
Oh,
What are
here
you
we go.
talking about?
Yes, Yuka. Okay, Yuka. Do you have questions for Timothy?
I'm always standing between your holiday and, Timothy, sorry. Between you and holiday, okay? Sorry. I have a quick question.
Go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
asked this last week because I don't know how to type.
Okay.
Thank you. Geez, okay. I'm getting a web. Okay. Okay, now I'm gonna just throw this out. So before I lose you, so another, the ball from the left field. So I'd like to sort of ask you about the Osaka Expo,
Yes.
the update on it. Because I have my acquaintance, Noto Peninsula. She went to sort of as a volunteer, and then she was shocked to see how slow the recovery has been. Some people, some people don't have the running water yet, and then yet another people still living in temporary housing. And the reason they were given was because all the manpower and resources was directed to Osaka Expo. But at the same time, isn't that like Osaka governor made a comment, like some like a sort of, the situation over there is kind of chaotic. So what is really going on? And then they're at the same time they're talking about 2% of GDP is going to be for the defense budget, right?
Yeah.
So how are you going to balance all those, the budget? That's my question.
Is this question
So
directed
am
at
I
me?
asking you this question?
Okay, it sounds like she's underwater.
Just a moment. I think that we're having.
I lost you, Maya.
Well, I'm still here. Can
There
you
you
hear me
are.
now?
Now I can hear you. Yes.
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 Oh, you asked me, sorry.
Yes.
So
Did
I
you
caught
hear the
most.
question,
I caught.
Yuka's
Yeah,
question?
I did hear most of Yuka's question. It sounded like she was gargling some of the time, but I got the gist of it about what's going on
Oh, as
with the
usual.
expo. Yes, brush your teeth too.
Yes.
So initially, the Noto Peninsula, the Noto Peninsula sucked in a lot of the contractors and the machinery and the workers to, first of all, as a rescue effort, but also as rebuilding. And first of all, let me say that this complaint that you have about nothing seems to be happening and people are not quite living in prefabricated houses, like that never happens, right? It happens all the time. It always happens. You would think that Japan would have a better response, a better reaction. They do, but it's still, there are a lot of people that are left out, and the earthquake was pretty massive and there's a lot to do. The power and the water are out. Yeah. But Osaka Expo is pretty important too, and it can produce a huge benefit to the hosting, not only the hosting city, but to the hosting country. There are millions, 28 million people who will come to Osaka during that 6-month period to experience the expo and to participate in it. But yeah, there is a little bit of confusion there because the government, and here's how the government is 1/3 invested the uh, in the expo. So how they pay for it is the Osaka City comes up with 1/3 of the cost. The central government comes up with 1/3 of the cost, and then businesses in and around the region come up with the other third. And many of the contractors were pulled away to Noto because not only their feelings of trying to help people, but also the pay is a little bit better. And they've had to switch that back. And so one of the features of the Osaka Expo, why none of the international pavilions, or only a handful of the international pavilions, have been completed, is because it's so expensive. Why in the hell is Osaka Expo so much more expensive than it was last time, or at any other city in the world? Look how expensive this is. And so that was one of the reasons. And now you've got Noto and the competition for the labor is there, and we have to bill you even more because the competition for contractors and concrete and material has shot up unexpectedly. And so frequently, the governor of Osaka will come to Tokyo and ask the prime minister or the minister in charge of the expo, could you please enhance this, a couple hundred million more because we're running into difficulty. They've done this on 6 different occasions. So one more time, I mean, I'm sure after every one, the minister says, no more. This is the last time, the last time you asked us for 20 million for publicity. You wanted 20 more million for publicity of this thing, not pouring concrete, not building pavilions. So yeah, there's a little bit of controversy, and that is disregarding the fact that Ishin is central to this expo, and the LDP is in control of the money and the management. So you've got that tension going on too. In any event, Japan benefits from a successful expo. If it's not that successful, it can be calibrated and tweaked, not only by the central government, but by Osaka. So it remains to be seen. But, it's going to happen in less than a year. the expo starts.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I didn't know those financing breakdown. I thought that was all 100% funded by the national government. So okay,
No,
now
no,
I
yeah, it's 1/3, and that's why Ishin, I'm sorry, the government of Osaka really lobbied hard. We want this. We're going to pay this. You don't have to worry about it. We're going to come up with our third, and the other third, we've already managed the Osaka businesses to come up too. So we've got 2/3. So central government, give us the 1/3, and let's make this bid and let's get this win. So they did that 3-4 years ago. They won the bid, and now it comes, the proof is in the pudding, and they came up with this idea of having the circular enclosement with made of timber, and people are saying, well, how much does that cost, and how useful is that? And once the expo is over, how can you repurpose that? So a lot of it is it's on this reclaimed island, so everything is built to be repurposed after the expo. It's only a 6-month expo. You're building these buildings, even though they might be somewhat temporary, they last longer than 6 months. So this is economic development for this whole Yumenoshima project, which is right next to the casino that they're building too, the first casino in Japan. So it's a huge economic gamble for Osaka. If it goes well, then I think Ishin is going to be a real opposition party to contend with because of the wealth that will be generated as a consequence of that.
Okay, so that the term gamble was, I think, pen intended. Okay, anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Yuka. Well, and Timothy, there is a question on LinkedIn from Rumiko. So I think that we partially addressed a similar question last week, and it's about the new bills, yen of the Japanese yen, that are going out in July, I think, this year. So,
Gosh.
okay. So value-wise, okay. So this is about the Japanese yen has depreciated a lot in value during the past several months. And so, what, in relation to this, what are your thoughts about introducing the new bills this summer?
Okay, Rumiko, I have to apologize because you gave me that question last week. I wasn't prepared to respond to it. Then I jumped on the boat, and I've been on the water this whole time. And now, when you mention it again, I'm thinking, oh gosh, Rumiko asked about the new bills that are going to go into circulation. And I didn't have the time or the computer space to actually investigate that and come up with something that was going to be, useful to you. I apologize. So if I can kick that ball down the road next week, I promise to address that. But it's a great question. Bills typically go through a recirculation area. They all the time. They need to get the old bills out and the new bills in, and also the technology for counterfeiting. But I'm really not in a very good position to respond to that. Great question. I'll take it another shot at that next week. Okay, with apologies.
All right. So I'll make sure that you do your research and are able to able to
I'm
answer the
sure you
question
will.
then. Yes. Okay. Great. And well, anything else? Just let me check out. Yes, from Diana Green, we have a comment about your location. Lovely, good content as usual, and thank you. All right.
Thank
So
you.
great. And one more question. It's a throwback to, well, your comments of a little bit earlier this morning from Hiroaki. He says, do you mean that PM Kishida should prioritize the drafting of the constitutional amendment in order to improve the ratings,
No,
his ratings?
no. If he pushes for constitutional revision now, it's a dead duck. So when the LDP promotes the constitutional revision, it will be full force and it will go until conclusion. So the reason why we talk about it a lot, but you don't see much action on it, is because the LDP doesn't have 2/3. Even in a coalition, it doesn't have 2/3. And if it doesn't have 2/3, it's not going to gamble on that. It's not going to say, we're going to revise the Constitution and we're going to promote this language to the general population in 2 months' time. So the lower house is going to chew through it, and then the upper house is going to chew through it. And after we get 2/3 of them to agree to it, we're going to submit it to you, the public. They can't say that with any degree of confidence. When the bill comes up, it will be because the LDP has a secure supermajority, 2/3, in some sort of a coalition with some sort of horse trading, where it will pass the lower house, it will pass the upper house, and then it will be produced to the public. I think if it goes through both houses, 2/3, and it is offered to the general population, I'm pretty confident that it will get more than 51% of the vote. That's the status. That's the deal. I think he's got too many controversies going on. He would not choose a losing horse like revising the Constitution now, which is why he's avoided it throughout his entire administration. Good question.
Well, yeah, thank you for the question, Hiroaki. And yes, Yuka, do you have any other questions for the moment?
You said
Or
I
maybe
was
you
going to
can.
get out early.
Actually, I have my opinion about how to, why the yen, those intervention. But I guess no, I don't want to keep it too long, and so and then also just watching Timothy Swain makes me seasick too. So anyway,
Right.
I'm just looking at it like that's why I cannot go on the sea. But anyway, yeah, those yen, those depreciation is really an interesting topic of mine. So maybe next time. Thank you.
Yes, Yuka, let's talk a little bit about this next time, because I think that Timothy will be ready next time to answer the question of Rumiko. So please join us again and give us your opinion on that, because
Thank you.
it's important to have different perspectives and points of view. Yes, Timothy, that's a nice view too.
Yeah, can you see? So this harbor is surrounded by cliffs, volcanic cliffs, and it's just a circular caldera. And you can see that it broke into the sea in a very narrow channel. So it's a very favorite spot for sailors to come and get out of the wind and the waves, because the current is just outside of the opening here. So the wind and the waves can be pretty dramatic, but it's a great place to berth your boat. And that's where we are for the next 20 or so minutes until I am released from this program and we set sail for home port Hota.
Oh wow, that's how long is do you expect that sailing to be?
That will probably be a 3.5-hour sail, maybe 4, depending on the wind and the waves.
Well, I thought it would be longer. Well, 3 or 4 hours is actually a very pleasant sail, I believe. if the sea is not that rough, of course. Okay, great. So thank you very much, Timothy. And yes, I can see that you're rejoicing. To everybody who stayed with us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, also in Clubhouse, thanks a lot for being here, even on the Children's Day. It is a pleasure to have you with us. If you have any other questions, please keep them until next Sunday when we'll be here once again. And probably Timothy will be reporting from a different location. Not probably, maybe. That's 100% sure. Okay, great. Well, with that, again, Timothy, thanks a lot for
Thank
making.
you very much, Maya. Thanks for doing a great job, and good luck at the chiropractors.
Right. Okay. And to you once again, I don't want to repeat myself every time so often, but at least try to, not to swim after the boat. Yeah. Oh, yes. All right. And that's it. We'll see you next Sunday at 8:20. Please, if you have any questions that you want us to prepare in advance for, you can direct message either me or Timothy on LinkedIn. It will be a pleasure to answer them.
Good luck
Thanks
with
a
that.
lot. Uh-huh.
Thanks,
Okay.
Maya. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
See you
you.
next week.
See you.
Thank you. Enjoy your trip.